All right, welcome to session 4 of the FCSI BYO CEU event. Before we jump into this session, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. This session will be recorded. All attendees are in listen-only mode. We'll host a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please use the Q&A feature to post your questions. This session qualifies for half a CEU. Upon entering the Zoom session, you were asked to enter your name. This will allow us to track your participation. We'll submit to FCSI to ensure that you receive your CEUs. We'll give everyone a few minutes to make sure your name is entered correctly before we capture attendance. With that, I would like to introduce Paula Donahue, Western Regional Manager for Jackson Warewashing Systems. She has held sales and general management positions in the food service industry for over 25 years and is ServSafe certified, CFSP and FE3 accredited. Paula is live streaming today from Colorado and will take us beyond the dishes with warewashing design. Take it away, Paula.
Thanks, Tim. I will share my screen here. And sorry for the delay there. And by the time the pandemic's over, I'll be really good at all of this. So again, thank you, Tim. Since the pandemic began, new information is coming in really day by day on the status of where we are. What we wanted to do is go over some of the beyond the dishes, and then also talk about where we are on our comfort level with eating out overall. So Data Essential is a Chicago-based company, and since the pandemic started, they've been charting the various polls that they've been giving. One of which is, are you very concerned about coronavirus? And as we can see, at the beginning in March, we started seeing a spike, and it went up in end of March, early April. We started seeing a decline, but then again at about the 4th of July, it peaked, and again at Labor Day it peaked. And we're not really sure where this is going to be at the next report for November, but based on the current increase in cases, we do expect this to be again spiking up on the very concerned. They've also polled the where we are, if we are definitely avoid eating out. And of interest here is the correlation between the two was pretty consistent until about the 4th of July, where we saw a slight spike, but it was not nearly as intense as it was on the very concerned about coronavirus. And the reason for this is that now that we know about the virus, consumers are no longer terrified of leaving the house. Now they and we feel more in control over protecting our health. We won't abandon restaurants knowing that there's more risk, but we will take more precautions. So restaurants that go the extra mile will ensure that they stay part of the consumer consideration. So how do we continue to give restaurant patrons assurance that it's safe to eat out? The National Restaurant Association has great suggestions on reopening available on their website. Assurance decals are also a good start for operators, placing these decals in their windows for customers to feel confident to come back into the in-person dining. Communication of cleaning processes, policies, and expectations prior to the customers being seated is key to putting them at ease, and it's a good first step to make dining more enjoyable again. As restaurants reopen or reinstate dining in, and the dishwasher hasn't been used for a while, it's a good time for a proper restart. This is good for the safety of the guests as well as the safety of the employees. We'll want to also make sure that we're disinfecting and sanitizing the dish room, including heavy touch areas such as handles, switches, faucets, garbage cans, and the like, and of course the dishwasher. A thorough deliming will help to eliminate any scale or food soil that might be present. Instructions for deliming can be found in the operational guide for the machine, regardless of the brand. Also, we should remind the operators to ensure that all the exhaust fans and hoods are running properly. And really important is to check and make sure all the chemical dispensers are working properly. And if they're not sure, they should contact their chemical supplier for further assistance. CEFESA service agents are trained on all food service equipment, so having them come in for a tune-up may also be a good idea. So the future of Dishroom design in a post-COVID environment is expected to be heavily focused on physical separation between the soiled and the clean areas moving forward. Separation should be a consideration whenever possible. The solid separation showing in this cutaway of the dish room will accommodate 2 employees dedicated to the dishwasher. In the clean side, as well as the soiled side. So this way that they're handling, you have 2 operators, one on the clean side, one on the soiled side. And in the case of a single operator, the physical separation will make cross-contamination harder, and it'll remind the employees to change their gloves or wash hands between operations. This is an example of a hospital project that was designed prior to COVID. So 2 dish rooms were initially designed into the renovation project. In just 4 months, the hospital lost over $1 billion in revenue. So the revised budget caused the cut of 5 full-time employees over the next 3 years from the food service director's budget. So this made staffing 2 dish rooms impossible. So this required a reconsideration along with a renewed look at cross-contamination. The revised post-COVID layout you see here incorporates the separation of the soiled and the clean areas with an enlarged storage area for both sides. A door was added between the conveyor and the flight machine. Ultimately, the 2 dish rooms on the previous slide were centralized into one to accommodate trays from the servery for the hospital workers and visitors, along with the patient meals being served in all directions on the campus. The soiled and clean paths utilizing the interior and exterior corridors achieve the desired post-COVID result needed for their specific operation. The pot and pan wash area was moved into a separate room. By separating these 2 rooms, staffing allocation was manageable. So you have 2 full-time employees in the centralized flight and conveyor dish room and 1 employee in the pot and pan wash area. The additional advantage is that the wares being used in the production kitchen are never exposed to the server and patient meal delivery trays or delivery carts. So being innovative has never been more important in looking at dish rooms. Here's an overview of the final layout showing both the pot and pan room along with the dish room. You'll notice that the paths of entry and exit along in both areas are separate. And along the right wall, the clean carts are lined up, so these will be feeding into the production kitchen. So very clear directions of operation within these dish room operations. Existing dishwashing areas should be clearly divided into, again, the clean and dirty end. So an employee is not loading dirty dishes and then moving over to the clean. By moving back and forth, they're possibly creating cross-contamination. The best practices would be, again, to have 2 employees dedicated to the dish room, 1 handling dirty and 1 handling clean. Unfortunately, this is not always possible on the smaller operations. In smaller facilities with tight spaces where separation of soiled and clean area is difficult, plastic partitions are being used to reduce that splash between the soiled wash water and cross-contamination to the clean side. Also, clean dishes are being stored away from the dish room in dish dollies on racks being wrapped or being returned to service immediately. Here's an example of a smaller footprint operation where a door-type machine has been designed, and this would be a typical design where you have the soiled and the clean area with the clean dishes and storage on the clean side. After discussing COVID and how to reduce the risk, the drawing was revised to include a pass-through design, a pass-through partition with a swinging door, and this would avoid the splash between the soiled and the clean area. And it also keeps the clean dish storage separate from the dirty side of the dish room. So confidence is not only needed in dining. Where are some other areas where warewashing can be used to assure sanitization? A great way that warewashing is being used to create consumer clean and sanitized confidence is at the H-E-B grocery store chain in Texas. Some of those locations are using their undercounters to wash hand carry baskets when they're not in use for their food service operation. With heightened focus on cleaning and sanitization concerns from parents, there's been an increase in daycare centers adding these undercounters to their facilities. With a high temperature sanitation, they can ensure that toys, cups, as well as their wares are being cleaned and sanitized. Casinos have actually been a leader of change by implementing hand washing stations throughout their properties. There's also been an increase in the point of use glass washers, and typically these are steam elimination units with energy recovery, and this allows a high temperature sanitizing dishwasher to be used at a customer facing location. We're also seeing less reliance on the 3-compartment sinks. The confidence that dishes are in the proper cleaning solutions for the proper amount of time is just not there. So we've covered some of the future of the dish room designs and how operators are handling their response to COVID. And so now let's discuss sustainability and how warewashing can help operators achieve a green solution. Single-use disposables remain at an all-time high, and this is not going to be sustainable. The demand for disposable single-use items have dramatically increased and substantially have fallen off, or sustainability has fallen off the radar for the time being. The impact on landfills is a disaster from all the styrofoam, plastic, and even the compostable takeout containers, and it's really not a long-term solution. Operators' costs have increased dramatically, as well as the municipalities' cost incurring due to the increase in landfills. Operators are navigating through the process as the cost for disposables escalate and the increase in the delivery and the takeout. Some are taking a sustainable approach and opting for biodegradable containers as much as possible, but unfortunately those eco-friendly packages aren't always the best for keeping the food fresh, and they can drive up costs. It's imperative that reuse and refill systems are implemented that both protect our environment and alleviate the worker and customer concerns. So operators really should consider a return on the go reuse models. One such company operates in Portland, Oregon. It's called GoBox, and they provide clean and sanitized containers to the food operators. These cottage concepts are popping up all over the country at the local level. Green Grub Box is a consumer subscribed service. It's offered in Seattle, San Francisco, and Portland, in addition to 400 university campuses nationwide. So in this case, the subscriber purchases the food from various participating restaurants, and then they return the container to a return station. And those are located throughout the cities. Surprisingly, Burger King is actually rolling out a pilot program. It's going to be introduced in 2021. Their test cities are going to be Portland, New York City, and Tokyo. Prior to COVID, many universities were using the Aussie system, and there is a startup cost to this system, but with the considerable savings over the single-use containers, it's the difference is made up in a matter of months. This concept is moving to other segments. For example, Adam Lamb, Director of Dining Services at Deerfield, it's a senior living community in Asheville. They successfully implemented the Aussie reuse container system. His community has an active sustainability committee. It's made up of residents who are very influential and passionate about sustainability. We see this often in universities where the customers or the students drive the sustainability by their purchasing power. And in many cases, sustainability in a university is a consideration in their selection process. Depending on the capacity requirements, either a conveyor or a flight type machine would be the model of choice for washing these wares. Operators should consider the drying time needed prior to returning the wares to service. So the options would be to have one or even two blower dryers, depending on the operation, or providing ample drying racks. So from March until now, most food service operations shifted to disposable takeout containers or disposable meal trays due to the COVID-19. Owners and operators focus on sustainability quickly shifted to survival. As we begin to understand our new normal, many operations have and will reopen with dining rooms utilizing dishware in an effort to save money and be kinder to our environment. With the new heightened focus on cleaning and sanitization, sustainable dishwashing equipment is going to be key to lowering that equipment, the energy consumption of that equipment. Many dish rooms in use today are 10 to 20 years old, and they have outdated technology, and they use high volumes of water and, of course, energy to heat that water. Water sustainability has been achieved through design. Manufacturers are lowering water consumption by using that water more effectively. As most cities' water systems and infrastructures are aging, the cost of repairs are being passed on to the customer through rising water rates. When a customer purchases a machine today, they expect lower water, sewer, and energy costs, which they should get. However, they're not willing to sacrifice their clean dishes for the lower water usage. They require and expect both. There are just two types of water management designs in ware washing. The dishwashers are either going to be built with a fill and dump tank design or a recirculating water tank design. So the fill and dump design holds the clean rinse water from the previous cycle and uses it in the next wash cycle, after which the wash water is then dumped. While a recirculating wash tank design reduces water by retaining that wash water in the wash tank where it's used for multiple cycles. And it does have an offset of the rinse water to help replenish the water in the wash tank. Many fill and dump design designs are not Energy Star rated due to the draining of that soiled wash water. And most recirculating designs do meet that Energy Star qualification. So models that have earned Energy Star meet strict guidelines. They're set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and are independently certified by a third party to save water, save money, and protect the climate. Highlighted in blue are the water consumption threshold that the machines have to meet as a component of the EPA specification. So these are shown by machine type. The products must meet the water consumption limits as determined by both the machine type and the sanitation approach, whether it's a low temp or high temp unit. Low temp meaning chemical sanitizing, high temp meaning high temperature sanitizing. Energy Star rated dish machines are now common across the category. Manufacturers have reduced the water usage by investing in research and development, launching sustainable products into the market. The savings are about 40% more efficient, more energy efficient, and 50% more water efficient than standard models built prior to 2007. Through development of new technologies such as heat recovery, lowering the energy consumption was made possible to achieve these energy efficient models. Highlighted in green here is the idle energy rate threshold requirements for the second component in order for the manufacturers to achieve that Energy Star rating. Technical approaches such as control systems that cut the use by allowing the machine to operate only when a rack is being washed or rinsed. It's been designed to reduce energy. With lower water consumption, that gives us lower kilowatt boosters, and those are being used to meet the proper temperatures, resulting in a significant reduction in energy consumption. Now we'll look at how we measure those energy costs. Those costs are calculated after the initial fill. So the facility increases the water temperature from 70 to either between 120 to 140 degrees in the primary water heater. The second, or the largest contributing factor to the dish machine is the booster heater and the energy consumed heating that water to 180 degrees for the final rinse. The other contributor is the idle energy used when the tank maintenance heat is cycling to keep that hot water in the wash tank ready for the next cycle. Energy Star is actually adding a new criteria for warewashing. It's going to be the total energy consumption. And this is going to require retesting of all Energy Star qualified models. It was set for July 2021. We're not sure how COVID is going to affect any delays in that, but there is a retesting in process currently. Energy recovery is perhaps the largest advance in warewashing technology to date. Energy recovery systems have become a standard in the industry and are commonly referred to as steam elimination, ventless, or simply energy recovery. It's estimated that a third of the high temperature units sold are ventless and/or have energy recovery. Steam elimination and ventless technology allow the dish machine to operate without an exhaust hood. Basically, the machine has a self-contained ventilation system. Many of the ventless units also utilize energy recovery, which captures the heat from the exhaust and uses it to heat the incoming water to the dish machine. Some machines require only a cold water connection, which eliminates that additional cost of the secondary heat source. Energy recovery on a conveyor captures the exhaust heat and repurposes that heat to increase the temperature to the incoming water. So in this case, a cold water connection feeds into the heat exchanger, and the fan draws the steam out of the wash chamber up through the heat exchanger where the incoming water is heated prior to delivery into the booster heater. The groundwater that passes through the heat exchanger uses the free heat drawn from the steam to heat the incoming water approximately 40 degrees. So with 70-degree incoming water and a 40-degree rise in that steam, you now have 110-degree water, which goes into the booster heater where it's boosted up to 180 degrees for the sanitized rinse. Here's an example where the ventless and energy recovery work together to reduce energy usage on a door-type machine. So energy recovery uses the steam at the end of the cycle to heat the incoming groundwater, as we saw on the previous slide. This eliminates the need for a hot water supply to the dish machine. The incoming cold water cools the steam, which turns to liquid and returns to the wash tank, thus eliminating the steam and also the requirements for a Type 2 hood. Ventless also reduces energy used to power the hood and the impact that it has on the facility's HVAC system. So this is estimated to be about an $1,100 savings in a year, and that's year over year. Energy recovery can also be achieved by capturing heat from the drain water and repurposing it to increase the temperature of the incoming water. Here's a great illustration of how steam elimination and energy recovery work together on an under-counter unit. So the incoming water is in a copper tubing that serpentines through the heat exchanger on the back of the unit. At the end of the rinse cycle, the fan turns on and takes all of the steam out of the cabinet and over that incoming water. Again, the steam provides a 40-degree rise in the water. So if you have 70-degree water coming in, Now you have 110 degree water, same as it came out of the hot water heater. Then that goes into the booster heater where it'll be boosted up to 180. At the same time that the steam is heating the water is cooling the steam, which returns back to water and back into the wash tank. Savings here would be the facility hot water as well as the efficiency point of warewashing. So they're able to wash at point of use as opposed to transporting to the main kitchen, which can also be a consideration in cross-contamination. So market trends have dictated how each of us play a role within the food service industry. Although we find ourselves in a global pandemic, we can't lose sight of sustainability and balancing warewashing needs with the optimal green warewashing solutions. We all have a number of strategies that we can use to help our clients and your clients adopt their kitchen to be more positively impact their bottom line as well as the sustainability. Fishnick has a great resource to compare various units to a base model to encourage stepping up to an Energy Star appliance. So these tools are available on food service equipment, including dishwashers, refrigerators, gas broilers, and electric ovens. In this case, if a single tank rack conveyor with the lowest in class 0.35 gallons of water per rack is compared to the base efficiency of 1.13 gallons of water per rack, it yields a 12-year lifetime savings of $15,000. So it's a great resource for quick comparisons. And then in the case of the dishwashers that we see here, pointing out how much the lower water usage can very clearly result in significant cost savings over the life of the equipment. Information on these tools, along with other energy savings tips, can be found at fishnick.com services #FE3. The California Energy Wise site is also a nice place to find comparisons of Energy Star qualified equipment, again, to the base efficiency. This information doesn't just apply to California. The information here is helpful in all states because they're comparing operational costs. Now let's take a closer look at a comparison for a specific project where we'll see the full range of savings, including the chemical costs. In this worksheet, we use this to compare and calculate cost per rack. So here's a snapshot of an audit sheet created utilizing parameters from various specification sheets. The energy and water usage calculator is comparing 3 different manufacturers with the water usage on this example of 0.35 gallons of water per rack, 0.52, and 0.62. So on the input sheet, you would put in the information on how many racks per hour, how many hours per day the machine will be operating, how many days per year. With the pull down menu, picking the various manufacturers, and then that'll populate the water usage. And again, with the information from the various specification sheets, it'll also populate the horsepower of the motors being used, the kilowatts of the heater tanks. And then there's also a choice of utilities, whether you're using the US average or specific state or even municipality, and in the case of the water usage. So after all this information is populated, then we're able to produce a PDF showing the comparisons between the 3. So again, in this case, we compared a 0.35 gallons per rack machine versus a 0.52 and a 0.62. So with this information, we're able to see, and I'm just comparing the 0.35 versus the 0.62, so the high and the low. And in this case, the electrical savings between those 2 units in this specific scenario, the electrical savings is $840 a year. Water and sewage is another $721. But the cost that's commonly overlooked is the chemicals. And in this case, we're looking at an annual savings just in the chemical costs between these two units $2,740. So gives us an overall annual savings between these two units of $4,300. So when we speak of sustainability, the water usage is directly related and it affects all areas of concern: electricity, the water, the sewage, and the chemical usage, and these are all directly related. So I hope one of your takeaways from this presentation is that sustainability is not a trade-off with operating profitability. It's actually an enhancement. And hopefully this is giving going green a whole new meaning. So that is the end of the prepared presentation.
Hey, Paula, thanks so much for that. We really appreciate it. And yes, sustainability, energy savings, water savings are really important more than ever right now. So I wanted to launch this poll. You had a question for everybody, so let's go ahead and launch that. We'll give it a second here to let everybody vote.
Yes.
Do you expect COVID-influenced changes to be permanent in kitchen and dining design?
Interesting.
Great, so there's the results of your poll, Paula. It looks like it's kind of a mixed bag, mixed crowd.
Yep.
Well, let's go ahead and jump over to some of the questions. There's a couple of really good questions here in the Q&A. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask those as soon as I stop the poll. Okay, Paula, do you know how much water per rack or per hour is used by a drain water temp kit?
It's going to vary. That's going to vary depending on the type of equipment, of course, and how much water is flowing out of it and the temperature of the water. When you're, typically it's going to be, some machines, it's going to be a consistent flow when you have the overflow coming out. So it's going to be less water. And then when you're draining the entire tank, it's going to be a lot of water draining, hot water, and a lot of cooler water draining. So it's going to vary. And that's one of the reasons typically these are not installed on the units. One of the issues that we're grappling with right now is the usage of water for the drain water tempering kits and how that affects Energy Star. And there really isn't a good number to be used for that. It's too many variables, unfortunately.
Well, you actually kind of answered the second part of the question. The second part of the question was, do Energy Star, LEED, or other agencies take this into account when considering efficiency ratings?
At this point, I think it's still a gray area where manufacturers are not installing the units, not installing the drain quench on the units because of that gray area. We're still waiting for direction. The drain quenches is a fairly new addition to the warewashing.
Great, thank you. To the next question. On the heat recovery units that don't require a booster, how many cycles do you need to run before the unit reaches the 180-degree minimum rinse temp?
Okay, they're all going to need a booster, but I think the question is if it's a cold water only connection, they don't have any hot water coming in, how many cycles, and it's going to depend on the incoming water and how long you want the wash tank to sit before it gets to temperature, because they're all going to have heated wash tanks, so eventually that water is going to get up to temperature. It's a matter of how long you want it to wait before you get to temp. So the suggestion is, if you come in the morning, you turn your machine on and you have enough time, you shouldn't have to run any cycles. Otherwise, running a couple cycles to get it rolling, because you have that 180 rinse water getting into the wash tank, and that'll help boost it up quicker. So it's all going to be an operational choice and how much time you have to get it up to temperature.
And is there a lull between washing the racks? How long will the unit hold rinse temp until it needs to reheat and run additional racks?
On a high temp machine, you know, and I'm talking about a set cycle. This would be the door types and under counters. All those high temp machines have some kind of a system in place where it will not go into rinse mode unless it has 180-degree water. So it'll stay in a wash cycle until you have 180 degrees. That's part of the requirements on dishwashers on high temp machines. So you're never putting dishes out there that are not sanitized. So I think that answered the question.
Great, thank you. One more question for you, Paula. Are there any current requirements for solid separation from clean and soiled areas of the dish room?
The only place that we've seen this so far is in Texas. It may be in other municipalities that we're not aware of, but in Texas, it is in place. But that was well before COVID. They were asking for that separation, but that's as far as I know is just the state of Texas.
Okay, and then you showed a slide with a conveyor comparison form. Where would we find that form at?
Well, that particular form, they could get that from you. That is a manufacturer specific form. I would imagine that other manufacturers have that as well, but that particular form, they could get that from performance reps.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for your time today and for your presentation. At this time, I think we're going to go ahead and hand it back over to Tim McDougald. So thanks so much, Paula.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Paula. Great presentation. It's definitely been a full day of learning and some great content. I want to thank all of our sponsors, Caddy, Jackson Warewashing Systems, Samick, and Wellbuilt, and especially PRNW for hosting this event. We've got another action-packed day tomorrow. We look forward to seeing all of you at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time to kick off day